Good morning and welcome to Radio Friends on this Friday, July the 24th. A pleasure to have you with us. And in the studio with us this morning, 7.5 feet away, we have our friend Barbara Buffaloe. It's good to see you again, Barbara
Hi, Paul.
Buffaloe.
How's it going?
Fine. We've been doing our segments on the phone for the past 3 months now.
I know. It's weird to not be in my daughter's room, which is like a softer surroundings, less
Right.
reverb. Yeah.
But it's good to have you back in the studio, and just so the people realize, when you come into this building, everybody wears a mask.
I do. I have my
Yes.
Betty Ray's ice cream from Kansas City mask.
Right,
Small plug.
we're all wearing our masks, and then we come into the studio. We're 7.5 feet away. We can take the masks off and do the interview. So anyway, what do you want to deal with? You want to talk about roadside pollinators today, right?
I do. Namely because people might be noticing, right? Because it's the summer growing season. And so, a couple years ago, we really started piloting putting more Missouri native wildflowers and plants and grasses along the roads that we manage, rather than coming out and having to mow like just regular turf grass, which is costly, produces greenhouse gas emissions, and actually doesn't help a lot with our stormwater and environmental improvements.
Let me interrupt here a minute.
Okay.
So you're getting complaints from people. They're complaining because the roadsides aren't being mowed, correct?
There are some people that have that opinion, yes,
Right.
yes.
But the important thing is, I wish all the roadsides would not be mowed, because the flowers, the wildflowers that are growing there are absolutely beautiful, and they're pollinators.
Yeah,
right?
and some of the things, for some of the areas, it might look a little weedy for a little bit, for a couple of years, because if it had been turf grass, if we just stop mowing and not plant anything or do any sort of treatment to try to get rid of the invasive species, the wildflowers wouldn't be able to take off, right? We wouldn't have as many pollinators. So it's really that in-between time where we're asking people to help and give us patience while we establish it, because this is a long-term investment for ourselves, for our future generations, and really for the environment.
Yeah, and when you look at those wildflowers, right now the Queen Anne's lace is blooming. The evening primrose is blooming. The black-eyed Susans are blooming.
Yeah.
And they're along the roadside, and I think there's nothing prettier
It is,
than that.
one thing that I've also heard is that, can make people kind of slow down, right? If it can reduce people going as fast because there is that kind of like lovely space around them, they're more likely to slow down. And then for me, like I'm looking at it from like a cost saving. So, right, it cost us between $250,000 and $350,000 to go out every year and maintain those places. And when we replace it with the native vegetation, it's going to cost us under $70,000 a year to do that.
Are you actually replacing? You're putting native vegetation
Right.
in.
So what we're doing is we piloted this last year, and then we're now working with a consultant for maintenance of this year. Obviously, during the COVID-19, we've had some delays in the project, which is probably why some things looked a little bit not as fresh as we would have liked. But we asked for everyone's patience in that. And so, we've been replacing the turf grass with native Missouri flowers and grasses that will help us kind of sequester carbon, which is good for our greenhouse gas emissions reduction, and also just improve the soil and our water quality.
And the thing is, when you have the native plants in there, they don't need the maintenance. They don't need the extra watering. They don't need the extra fertilizing.
Yeah.
They tend to take care of themselves because they were meant for this area, and evolved in this area.
It was interesting. I was asking our community conservationists, I was like, what are some of the benefits? Like, what are some of the other reasons for doing this? And she was mentioning that just mowing turf grass for 20 minutes produces the same amount of greenhouse gas emissions as if we were driving a sedan from Columbia to St. Louis. I know, right?
Wait, is that true?
Yes. Like, what? Because they were looking at the science for having these doing things. So, like, if I'm having just a regular mower out there with the fuel needed for it.
The big mowers that the city uses.
Right. And like
Boone
out there
County
for
uses.
20 minutes for having to do that. And I just think if I can reduce that greenhouse gas emissions, I've cut down on a trip to St. Louis. But then also I have those other like environmental benefits that are helping us out. And then also just the cost savings for it alone. I don't know if you know this, but like we're not rolling in money at the city and having to reduce our maintenance costs for our infrastructure every little bit helps. And if this is helping us reduce our cost, save our environment, and also providing that beautiful space for you to be driving along or riding your bike along, it's a win-win for me.
All right. So but the bottom line is, if you see the wildflowers growing up along the roadside, just enjoy it. And I wish the county or the state would do the exact same thing. I wish MoDOT would do the same thing, and not mow as much and let those wildflowers grow.
It is interesting. Now, I will say sometimes you might have to go in and do some maintenance, right, with some of the mowing. So MoDOT was actually one of the first places who piloted this, right, to try to reduce their mowing. But I think it takes that sort of time of over time coming up with your schedule for what it's going to be. We always encourage, if people have any questions, on our website, the Public Works and the Office of Sustainability have put together a como.gov/pollinator, which has a lot of the information about what's happening. If you do have questions about one that's maintained near your site, you can always call us at 874-CITY and give us feedback that way. But we really encourage people to give us patience and give us time. It's going to take a couple years for these to be established, and it really will be for the benefit of all.
Thank you, Barbara Buffaloe. We're almost out of time, but what about the curbside recycling?
Okay, Paul, COVID-19 is one thing that's affected us, but we've had this problem for a while. I imagine at this recording, we are going to be suspending curbside recycling indefinitely. And the reason for that is that we have an extreme staffing shortage. It's a hard job. The guys have to go around on trucks and pick up over 900 homes a day. And we have to prioritize trash pickup. Recycling is great, and I so want everybody to recycle and reduce how much is going in landfill.
You can still take it to the recycling centers.
Right. We have 11 drop-off container sites. We're always looking for more. What we found is that private property doesn't really want us to have a recycling dumpster there for other people to come to, so trying to find more publicly owned spaces.
But look for the recycling centers. You can take it in. That's what I do. And load up the pickup truck.
And I encourage people, break down boxes so that more boxes can fit into those recycling containers. If you see stuff at the side, please don't leave more stuff at the side. Give us a call at 874-CITY, but also go to one of the other sites. If you go to our website, como.gov, you can find more information, or you can always download the app that will give you notifications about your collection.
I'm going to have to tell you to be quiet right now, Barbara.
I like this music.
We're out of time. We're out of time. But thank you so much for coming by.
It's
always
a
pleasure to visit with you. Monday, we're going to talk about Bethany Christian Services and Safe Family for Children. Have yourself a nice weekend. Bye-bye. There, she's got her mask on.